That's one of the best ways to learn. I guess that's the.
It was bound to happen once.
That's the way that I learnt not to park my car in bad spots around the office.
Oh my goodness.
Because I towed the line so many times. Probably got like 3 tickets or something like that. And then the one day that I got towed, and we had a podcast that evening. So it was like, it was after work. I go down and I check the spot where my car should be. It is not there. And you know when your stomach just drops and you're like, no, not tonight. And then I, sure enough, call them up. Yep, your car's here at the lot. And gosh, where was it? I think it was like
Mount Eden.
Yeah, Mount Eden.
Right. I know, because my car's also to that spot.
So I had to it was, I had this time frame where we had to get to, I think it was Mount Roskill for a podcast.
That's right.
With Akash from Human Now. So I was like, oh my gosh, all right, got to go get my car. So I had to get an Uber, and then, oh my gosh, just so many logistics at play. But I was like, I am never doing that again.
Yeah, it's like you download the AT app again and you're like, all right, I'm going to start paying for parking now. It's that massive humbling of situation.
Yeah, I just always do it now. Like, this is, I've got a few tickets and I'm like, no, I'm just going to do it every time. And
you've got to be done. I mean, the few dollars that you spend in parking over however long tend to outweigh the $60 tickets that you get whacked.
Totally.
I used to work just one street up on East Street. No, just at Una Loco, just up there.
Dang, so.
And it was awesome. But a whole bunch of people came in, and of my colleagues they used to park around these streets, and they just used to just get the ticket or get towed or something because it costs less than having to pay for parking.
Yeah.
And they would take turns keeping lookout every hour or so. And we had a system.
I mean, I've definitely been in that state of mind. But for me, it's just the anxiety throughout the day of it's just another thing weighing on your mind.
Yeah. Well, when I worked up the hill in Ponsonby around there, and this is a massive. This is terrible. But I worked there for about 8-9 months, and over that period of time, I think the parking wardens are just absolutely useless that kind of stroll that area. Sorry to anyone who's listening.
Sorry.
If you're a parking warden, it's not a personal attack. I do love you. But we used to park there every day and just trust the fact that no one would ticket us or no one would chalk your tires. And over the 8 months or 9 months that I was there, I calculated it and I spent about $300 in tickets. But then if I calculated paying parking over that time, I saved over $1,000 just from not paying for parking. And so there was a part of me that was like, yes. But then from a moral level, I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Have you learned, Matthew, any non-parking or vehicle-related lessons recently?
None at all. It's just been all about vehicles.
Really?
It's all parking.
That is funny.
Transport will give you a lot of life advice.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a big question. I think there's a whole lot of things that I've learned. I think that's one of the things that I'm so grateful for with my job is or just in general with my life. I just feel like I learn every day, and that's why I also appreciate the chance to come on these sorts of things because it's nice to kind of cement those learnings because so much of it is go, go, go.
Yeah.
It's nice to just have the opportunity to sit back and go, oh, actually, I did learn that. And kind of figuring out how to apply it to the future and that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll have a think.
Nice. Well, without any further ado, welcome Matthew, to the Jeffrey podcast. It's good to finally have you on. It's been a bit of a work in progress over the last few months, but here we are. Yeah. And this is actually mine and Matthew's first time, and Cam. But I mean, the story goes back, meeting in person. But Matthew and I actually met during the first COVID lockdown whilst I was still freelancing. And Matthew and I did a project together for YANS, Youth Arts New Zealand. Do you say YANS or do you say YARNS? Or
YANS, but it's funny. Some people say YARNS. No, I like to think it's like the exotic version of YANS.
Yeah.
Oh, YARNS.
It's like yarn.
Welcome to YARNS, darling.
Or it could be a little bit more posh. It's like YARNS. I don't know. Either way, it's I just find it so funny because we always say YANS, but and some people say YARNS, and it's
definitely the pinky up version.
Yeah.
So it is.
Welcome to YARNS. songs.
Cheers to that.
Yeah. So yeah, we connected and we essentially did a rebrand for Yans over the first COVID lockdown. Yep. So that's how we first met and interacted. But yeah, bro, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, your background?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Kia ora. I'm Matthew. I'm 21 years old. I'm the CEO and founder of Youth Arts New Zealand. So we're a creative social enterprise that supports young people to both access the creative arts as a form of self-expression and also as a creative career. So trying to break down those barriers and get more young people to experience the positivity and joy that the creative arts can bring.
That might be one of the best elevator pitches I've ever heard in my life. You nailed it. That's great.
Appreciate that. I mean, it's been like 4 years of full-time mahi to get to that point. So, yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's me. And that is very much a part of who I am. But it's also my main connection to the arts is through music, so I play a bit of piano, absolutely love it, and that's how I started my journey with Yans and kind of all the other things that I do. I also sit on the board of Play It Strange Trust, which is a national songwriting competition for young people across Aotearoa, and advise on a few other council initiatives and working groups in the kind of creative arts sector. So
amazing.
That's me.
Very busy man.
So cool.
Yeah, it's definitely busy, but I've found my thing, and I'm very grateful to have found that at such a young age.
Yeah. It's very. I think like you can say that, but it's very evident just in the way that you compose yourself and you speak. From the moment you walked in here, you've just got this kind of lightness about you. So it's cool to hear you kind of like vocalize that. Like, yeah, I've found my thing, and it's I love what I do, but I can see it. You know.
Yeah, I know
when you can just tell from someone's being.
I feel like even when you're having conversations with, I mean, for me, a lot of my like life revolves around young people, like high school age, and when you're having conversations with people that are kind of caught in the tension or between the rock and a hard place of trying to figure out actually what to do with their lives and trying to go flip, is university a good idea? Should I go and do tertiary education at all, or an apprenticeship, or which is tertiary, but is trying to figure out their lives, and there seems to be this kind of tension and uptightness and stress and anxiety that comes alongside all those big decisions. But with you've got this like really encouraging, and I think even I feel relaxed already. Just you've got this peace about yourself, and I think that's cool. It's
if
really
I
cool.
needed an ego boost, then Thanks,
boys.
I appreciate that, but I think there's I found that, and I'm super grateful for that, but I also recognize that that's a privilege, and I think for me it's about affording opportunities to the young people in our lives and in our country that don't actually have access to those opportunities.
Cool.
And I'm so grateful that I am where I am now, but it's ultimately the result of a lot of hard work from my end, a hell of a lot of hard work, but it's also the result of a few other things at play. And so for me, I'm super lucky, super grateful, but it's like how can other people experience what I've been able to experience?
How did you figure that out? How have you ended up where you are now? I guess there's probably a massive story around it all, and I'm excited to hear it. But I think more specifically, like you've gone on this journey of actually figuring out and finding the place where you're at, and that you're super comfortable in. It's like your thing. Like how did you get there? How have you got this piece and like the confidence of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it all comes back to a few key moments, which I'll touch on very briefly. But when I was at school, I was fairly good at school. No shame in saying that. Like I was pretty decent, and
I read that.
And I really enjoyed it as well. Like I did well. I was never the absolute best, but I always consistently kind of, came like third, fourth, fifth, that sort of level.
Cool.
And it was great. I had a great time. But I always really struggled with my mental health. Like always was, and I never really had this idea that or I couldn't tangibly say like, oh, my mental health isn't that great at the moment. I had no idea what depression was until I was like 18. You know, I thought it was this thing that was just like only people that were like, you know, in rehabilitation centers had. I had no idea it was something that was so prevalent and that everyone had. But yeah, so I think that kind of lived experience with mental health and my lived experience of being a musician myself and of kind of acknowledging those benefits of playing music, that led me to, within my school, establishing an arts council. And there was a whole lot of pushback against that, so much so that I had to prove it. And so to prove that we needed an arts council, I produced this arts showcase and got a few hundred people through the door to just view the incredible creative mahi of and identities of that school's young people. Wow. And that was real cool. And that was my first thing that I organized. There were definitely a whole lot of flaws in it, but it like ignited the spark in me, and I was awesome. Like, I love this. So and that was it wasn't just I produced a cool event. Like I actually knew it went deeper than that for those young people. Like I know quite a few of them I hadn't really talked to before. I hadn't even, like, you know, in schools there's the little kind of little groups of people little and clerks. And I was trying to think of that word. I'm glad you said it. And you know, there's like the kind of the athletes and the popular people and the ones that always go to parties, and I was always kind of floating between all of those. I never really had my own group. I was always floating, but you know, a lot of the people in that school that were not necessarily underrepresented, but undervalued, they just totally shone through that arts showcase. It was really cool to see, and just to observe the real tangible shift in their outward like confidence, and giving them that opportunity to, I said it before, like express their identity, because that's what the creative arts is all about, right? It's all about like, what is your true self, and exploring that. So yeah, I think that's where it started for me, was just realizing like nothing is going to change for me as a musician, let alone my peers, unless someone steps forward and does something about it. And yeah, so I guess that's how it started. And then went on to produce a few other events, and ended up getting Avalanche City in for a show, cool, which was real cool. That was the first event after high school that I did. And then, it just kind of, it went from there.
Were you scared?
Scared is an interesting concept. I think I was anxious. But I think above all, I was excited. I was like, you know, young people, and to a certain degree, even now, like still a bit naive. Like I don't have the experience or wisdom that someone a little bit older might have, but I think that's the beauty of it, and that's the beauty of being young, is just like experiencing things. And of course I was nervous, I was anxious, but I was more excited.
It's kind of like that beautiful like naivety, right? And that, I don't know, I can kind of relate to that as well, because I'm also 21, and through, I don't know, I
thought you were so much older. No way you're 21.
But same for you though, like I fully thought you were like 25, 26. And I mean, I've never met you before now, and I've never had this conversation with you before, but like, even just exploring, I like follow you on social media, and I follow Jans after Charlie like did the design and stuff, which I also love. Such a sick brand. But yeah, I don't know. I've always thought you were way older than you are, and it's actually really interesting to know that you're also 21 and the way that you're doing the things that you're doing. And I had a conversation with someone the other day where they were saying that they carry quite a cynicism about them in the workplace. And it was really interesting as we were bouncing off each other, and this individual just said to me, she was like, how are you so optimistic? Like, how do you even see these certain things that are like blatantly negative as something that's like got a potential for positivity? And the more I've reflected on that, the more I've gone, I think there is a beautiful naivety about being young, where you haven't been burnt too many times, where you've got that kind of And that's not necessarily everyone, because there are people out there that are young that have lost that. But I also think that, I don't know, for people like you and I, it really actually fosters a bit of a flame. And it's, I don't know, it ignites something and gives passion to what you do, which is something that I see a lot of older people don't have, which is kind of sad. But increasingly, I think also a lot of young people don't have it either, which is almost even more sad. That passion and that flame that I see in you, like, it's not that common. So again, encouragement to you. But how do you find that in your work? And because you do a lot of work with young people, with uni students, and like empowering creatives, and you touched on mental health being a big part of your journey as well. And I'm sure that's a massive part of the journey of those who you work with as well. So how, like, what is that like for you in that space?
Yeah, definitely. It's like the mental health side of things is huge, and we know that New Zealand just has an incredibly awful mental health epidemic, and especially our young people are more and more experiencing just the most horrific things and not being supported. And you know, I've had my own experience with the mental health system, and a number of my peers and whānau have had experiences, and it's just awful. And so
I'm sorry to hear that.
I mean, it's not ideal, and that's why I'm so, like, I look up to, you know, people like Mike King. Like, he is leading the way, leading the charge, but change only happens if we all get behind something, right? So I hope that people are getting out and supporting that sort of kaupapa. But you know, for us, it I want to make it clear that I'm not. I haven't found my thing, and I'm healed. You know, I think that's a really important thing to know.
Absolutely.
Because last week I took a day off because I was so anxious. I had I wouldn't say it was a full-blown panic attack, but it was I was incredibly anxious the night before. Didn't go to sleep until like 3-4 a.m. because I was just like freaking out. I took the next day off essentially, and my work has been backed up for the last week. And I have so much to be doing now, but I needed to take that time off. But yeah, I just want to make sure that that's it's not. I see so many videos that really frustrate me of people that are like, I was here and then I did this thing and now I'm here and everything's better.
Yeah.
Life is not that black and white.
Yeah.
Life is not that linear. You don't change one thing and things are solved. You know, I'm always
100%.
going to struggle with my mental health.
Yeah.
But what I need to do is figure out like the ways that I'm going to manage that. And it's not about pushing it aside. It's actually about leaning into the advantages of it. I mean, I acknowledge again that not many people have that luxury. But since my anxiety and I guess depression isn't at the level of some people, I have the opportunity to go, actually, let's just be a bit more aware of this. And I said before the positives, I don't think there's too much of a positive spin you can put on it, but it's more about acknowledging and being with it and realizing that this is who you are, and then working with it, as opposed to separating it from your identity, because then you don't fix it. You just kind of try to remove yourself from it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that answers anything at all, but yeah, I mean, to be honest, that was just a huge tangent, but we'll go with it.
No, that's awesome, man. That is such a great reminder. Just some of those key sound bites that just stuck with me around, life not being a linear journey or just going from A to B, because, man, honestly, you're never going to be entirely healed from these things. Like, life is such a journey, and each day just brings so many different challenges and opportunities and joy and despair as well. But it's like you said, it's leaning into it, and actually when they do rise up, owning it and actually acknowledging it and tackling it head on. because
like wearing those scars with pride. I think. And a lot of those scars are inward, and so it's difficult to do that. But I think, it's so important that that we acknowledge that it's part of who we are as the human race. It's not just something that we have to experience on an individual level. Like, go and get help, go and speak to people. Like,
get in community.
Therapists are incredible. Like, I used to go to a therapist a lot more than I do now, but I still go, and it's not like I have too much to talk about sometimes. I mean, sometimes I do, but sometimes, most of the time, I don't even have anything to talk about. But then I go there, and I'm like, and I settle into the space, and then I start talking. And it's like, all of these things that kind of come out that I didn't realize I was affected by. It's just, I wish that people would prioritize their own mental health and the mental health of others as much as they do physical health.
Yeah.
You go to the doctor, and I mean, I've had the most awful experience with doctors about mental health, and they're just prescribing these pills. It's like, I don't actually need those pills, and I've never taken antidepressants. I want to try and change my lifestyle to fix that, And for me, it's been all around trying to separate my work a little bit from my identity, so that if we have a loss or something happens, then it's not me.
You don't go down with the ship.
Exactly. But still acknowledging that I'm the founder of this, and it's still a big responsibility for me. But so that's been part of it, and it's been
healthy.
about like diet and sleep and exercise, all of this
it's
stuff.
such a holistic thing, eh?
It is so holistic, but I have lost all my faith in GPs and in the kind of public health system, because it's so prescriptive. It's so not individual focused, and it doesn't prioritize the needs of the individual. It prioritizes quick fixes, quick solutions, because it's public money that they're working with. And I'm quite sick of it. Anyway, we've gone quite depressing. But,
I really admire the honesty, and I would say I've definitely will share those situations and those experiences as well, especially with our mental health system, with seeking help for loved ones and trying to reach out to the best of my ability, and going down a loophole of 10 call redirects to getting to an answer phone when it was urgent and serious, and it's not good enough. It really isn't, especially when it happens more than once.
Oh, sorry to hear that. I had a very similar experience, except in my experience, it was a very urgent situation, and instead of not getting through to someone, I got through to someone, but that person pinned the blame on me and said that it was a past relationship that I had, and they got me and basically sat myself and my partner down and laid it all on me, and said that I needed to be doing more, and that I wasn't doing enough, and all of this stuff, when I quit, didn't quit my job, but I had to be at home almost all of the time, and I mean, it was a horrible situation. So and I think, coming full circle back to the kind of creative side of things, I think that while creativity isn't a cure for, if you're suicidal or extremely depressed or something, it's not a cure, but it's something that takes the edge off. It's something that allows you to sit with that. And I think that's one of the best things that I've learned, is about just learning to be okay with who you are. And since I was born, have been trying to be someone that I'm not. And it's only really been in the last year or so that I've kind of stepped into this Matthew Goldsworthy that isn't a product of every single person around me, their good qualities.
Right.
It's like,
gotcha.
Actually, this is who I am, and I accept my flaws and I'll work on them, rather than being kind of someone to to everyone.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What does the Yans team around you look like? What sort of?
They look real funny. They look a bit strange. Big noses, strange hair.
Shout out.
Direct call out, actually.
What does like your immediate team look like that you work with on a daily basis?
So we've got Harrison Sugru. He's just really good mate of mine. We've been pals since the Arts Showcase, actually. That was our first event that we produced together.
Wow.
So he's our ops manager, but I mean, we have role titles, but we kind of just do everything. I'm sure you guys
More
can
business.
relate. Exactly.
That we just real quick on a super quick tangent. I work for a digital agency within a larger marketing agency. We share their office space, and one of their creatives, I saw his job title was Creative Ninja.
I love it.
It was just like, how awesome is that? Like, just not taking that stuff too seriously. It's like job titles, whatever. Like,
yeah,
you know,
totally. Yeah. I think we need to get to be a bit more creative with our job titles. I think. But anyway, so we've got Harrison, who is our awesome ops manager, but kind of also has the kind of creative director hat on. Helps a lot with like just everything. He's awesome. He at the moment is focusing a lot on like building out digital stuff, and he's mainly the face of our organization to a lot of the young creatives that we work with.
Nice.
So that's Harrison, and then we've got Zach Devi, who's incredible Te Kahui project manager. So Te Kahui is our creative writing and corrections program that we facilitate for young inmates. Currently at Mount Eden Corrections Facility, but we've just got some funding actually to take that project to the next level, which is super exciting. So we get to go to rather than prescriptive funding, which says, you know, you go to this place, we actually get to go to the communities where the young people need our support the most. So that's an awesome opportunity, and I'm super grateful for that. And Zach has been driving that project since day one. So so that's Zach's role. And then we've got our Te Kahui team that Zach manages, so Eric, Padiso, and Ruby. They are just incredible. They go into corrections and actually facilitate the programs. And then we've got our incredible board of trustees. And a few volunteers as well. Alex, Java, and I hope I'm not leaving anyone else out.
Nice.
That's so cool, man.
Far out.
It's an awesome team. I am like, I was writing for something yesterday, I can't remember what it was, and just reflecting on the team, and I am so lucky to have such a cool group of people, and especially people that share such similar values as well. I think that's like, we're a small team, but we seem so much bigger because of the incredible abilities of everyone around us. It's super cool. So that's the Yans whānau.
Yeah. I remember earlier you were talking about back in the school showcase, and you said you were speaking of a bit of opposition. I'd be really keen to hear like what that looked like back then and what that's looked like over the years for Yans, the opposition that you've faced, any external challenges or anything that's kind of come up against you. What's that looked like?
Again, it's a great question. I think it's like there's been a whole lot of challenges. Back when it was when I was doing the arts showcase, I think the biggest challenge was around our the system, quote unquote. So I mean, it was the school, it was the bureaucracy that existed within the school, and I think the people, so the principal and deputy principal that I was working with to try and kind of get the showcase up and running, they were really cool people, and I think it was just the fact that it hadn't existed before, that they were a little bit kind of wary of. And so that's why I needed to prove something. And I mean, I don't really regret that. Or I I wouldn't have changed that. In fact, I wouldn't have changed anything really, because that's kind of like why I'm here, why I'm sitting here having this conversation with you guys. You know, it's like that stuff that I was fighting against has now led me into a position where I know that I'm kind of fighting for that stuff that I was fighting against, if that makes sense. So like the opposition I was facing was really just like the school structure and does this really fit in? You know, we've got resource allocated to academia and sport, but and my argument was like, the arts. And there was a whole lot of politics and a whole lot of stuff that I won't go into. But that was the opposition that we were facing. Now that I'm in this position where, you know, we're a national organization and, you know, it's very different to a single school running an arts showcase. It's a similar opposition, but from a whole bunch of different people or organizations or kind of roles, and in very different ways. So, for example, I was talking to someone recently who was adamant that she's an incredible mind and an incredible person, really, but she was so fixated on the idea that the creative arts wasn't a career for people. And essentially said, look, you should really consider what you're doing with your job. And told me, I think you have more, I think you have great ability, but you should be focusing on something else. I think she failed to realize that would actually give me more fuel and ammunition. But anyway, so that was really interesting because, you know, the creative arts employs 131,000 people in New Zealand and contributes over $17 billion to our GDP.
Wow.
And I mean, we know that GDP is a bit of a strange measure of our well-being as a country. Well, it doesn't measure our well-being as a country. But regardless, it's an indicator that the creative arts is a huge powerhouse. And, you know, even if you're just looking at it on that economic level. And so, I think that's one of the things that we're facing. We're also facing a little bit of, a lot of competition. So, I mean, with what we're doing, there's a lot of other youth arts organisations out there. And so this is less about opposition and more about scarcity of resource. And, you know, there's a limited pool of funding and we're very lucky to get some of the funding that we get, but none of it's guaranteed, none of it's ongoing. We just got some multi-year funding for one of our programs, which is just incredible. But it's very much something that doesn't happen every day.
And it's still a resource that eventually you work your way through.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's that. I mean, there's just not enough funding for what we do, and a lot of people try to categorize us into, either a youth organization or an arts organization or something, but and that's the tricky thing, because funding is allocated in that way. Funding's allocated towards either mental health, and it's like these very specific outcomes, or it's allocated towards arts, but it's specifically for like X, Y, and Z in this specific area for this specific audience. And those things are all really important, but it relies on a very, a very Western, very colonial system of like, we know what's best, we'll prescribe you with the resource. And whereas it should come from the community. It should come from, if it's a young people's fund, then it should come from the young people.
Yeah.
What do they actually want? Not just organizations that that say that they're for young people, but they have no youth representation, and so that's something that I'm so conscious of with Yans, is trying to build out, like, I'm not going to be 21 forever. I'm going to be 21 for another few months, and so how do we ensure authentic, genuine, diverse youth voice in our strategy and our programming and all of that stuff? Anyway, again, a huge tangent, but
no, it's fascinating.
There's so many different types of opposition that we face, and I guess it's more challenges that we face.
Yeah, and it's probably more than you ever could have
Yeah.
even thought about back in those high school days when you were just kicking it off, you know?
Back to what you're saying around the funding, like the first thought that I had when you were saying that was that it's almost as if the way that New Zealand funding works is that it's built for people to build organisations around like getting the funds, if that makes sense. Like it's not like the organisation, you've almost got to have you've got to be so what's the word, like pinpointed or like specific or like specified for a certain tiny little thing to actually
like
get niched. Yeah, it's kind of like you pinhole yourself and you niche yourself to a certain area or thing so that you can receive funding, so that you can become a sustainable organisation. Because the reality of running as an organisation is you need to employ people, and to employ people you need to have a solid stream of income or revenue to be able to like actually pay someone's wage, or you know, if you want to like scale that. So it's almost like the way New Zealand funding seems to work, from what you just said, is that people almost have to build their organisations around receiving those funds rather than around actually doing good or benefiting and like building and loving on community. Like it's
so interesting. Yeah,
like
I mean,
I've not done anything in that space, and that's like my first thing that I heard in that. I was like, wow. That's a broken system.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like a few thoughts on that. It's so important that there is that localized specific funding, because often those are for communities that need it most. So what I'm saying is we can't take that away, but we need to fund more innovatively. We need to allow for organizations to rise through the ranks that aren't necessarily going to serve a purpose for a very specific community, but are actually going to uplift a sector, because that's what we're doing. You know, we're not just focusing on young Pacifica people in, I don't know, X part of Auckland. You know, there's organizations that do that. And
they're important.
Incredibly important. And so it's about, for us, how can we develop a bit more of a strategy around youth arts in Aotearoa, so that all of those organisations are uplifted, all of the young people that are part of those organisations can connect with each other, can connect with additional opportunities that we can provide them with. You know, it's so like you're very right in saying that we have to build our organisations like that based on the funding model, but I also think that we can't sit on our hands or kind of go, we don't get funding. Like I see this in the arts sector so much. I go to these these hui where we talk about sustainable funding and all of this stuff, and this is a conversation that's been happening since long before I was born. And I enter these rooms and it's the same conversation every time. I've been a part of 10 of these working groups or something, and it's always the same conversation. It's like more funding for arts. What I'm doing with Jans is going, yes, we need a little bit more funding, but how do we fundamentally structure our organization in a way that allows for long-term sustainability? So we're not a traditional charity. We don't just rely on funding. We're a social enterprise. So we've done collaborations with the America's Cup, with Auckland Unlimited, with Council, with Fresh Concept, a placemaking agency, with other events organizations, conferences, event companies, all of those sorts of organizations, to provide them with awesome youth talent that we work with. And the surplus that we generate from those activities goes back into feeding our other initiatives. And the goal for us is that as we build up our commercial capability, that builds up our community capabilities and our ability to actually
such a healthy model.
Yeah, it's such a great model.
But it's also an incredibly difficult model for organizations that already exist. It's so difficult to pivot because it's and a lot of organizations won't necessarily have the ability to commercialize their operations. So I'm not saying every organization can do it. I just think that the arts sector, the innovation that we bring to our programs and to our communities, I think we have to bring that ideology to funding and fundraising as well.
That's cool, man. Man, I love it. It fires me up big time.
That's awesome, man. What do you do to unwind?
Used to be playing music. I've recently...
Not anymore?
So busy. No, it's a busy life. I enjoy it, and music is always there for me if I need it. And occasionally I'll dust off the piano keys and get out my little MIDI keyboard and and have a bit of a jam.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to create some more kind of conscious space for that in my week, but. Reading is also something that I've just got back into. I used to devour books, I don't know, 7 books a month or something.
Wow.
When I was really young, and it just kind of dropped off as I got more into technology and like phones and laptops, and it's oh, this exciting tech. And
TikTok.
Never got into TikTok.
Don't.
I was saying to Charlie, it's such a good business idea, bro. We gotta get Jeffrey on TikTok.
I have downloaded and deleted and downloaded and deleted.
Yeah. I know
is dangerous.
So many people I know are it's just
it really plays
Instagram.
Really plays into that slot machine methodology of just
absolutely
continuous content.
I mean, it's incredible from the developing perspective, the way that they've done the algorithm and the understanding of human psychology and all of that. But it's so dangerous. As well.
It is.
Yeah. What's an area of the creative sector, like the youth arts, that's kind of up and coming that you're really excited about?
Well, I think I'm best positioned to talk about music because that is something that I've got the most connections with, and I guess it's just a lot of the mahi that we do at Yans is at the moment focusing on young musicians for our paid work opportunities.
Yes.
So I guess that's just something that I'm super passionate about myself, but it's also something that I see huge potential with, and with, for example, pop stars that that just aired. It feels like there's a real rise in the amount of young people that are not just doing cool things with their own music, but there's also just some amazing producers and composers and managers and all of those different parts of the industry that are kind of rising up, and that feels super cool. I think that's what
that's
I would
awesome.
say to that.
I'd say even more recently I've been making a massive effort to go to more gigs and go to more Kiwi music, and we have got such an awesome music scene in New Zealand. The artists, I've been going to a few of these ones recently, and it's so cool to see the different types of people that turn up to these events to support one another. These kind of higher tier producers, are going to some of these underground upcoming artist shows, and different managers from big artists, in the scene. And I wouldn't have known who a lot of these people are, but Avi has pointed them out to me at these gigs. But it's so cool that I'm just man, that's so cool that they turned up to this. I would not have thought that they would.
Yeah, actually, slight tangent, but when I was the first Yans event, it was held just down the road at the Dog's Bollocks. On Newton Road.
What a place.
Classic.
Great venue.
Yeah. Is it still running?
On Newton Road. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Oh,
it's
mate.
the
Sounds
intersection
like a great time.
it's K Road and Ponsby Road, that
kind
area.
of green building, Lord of the Rings-esque typography, and
The Dog's Bollocks.
The Dog's Bollocks.
Anyway, so great venue. But we ran our first gig there, and we had Daffodils play. If you guys know Daffodils,
right?
And awesome young band, and we had 2 support artists as well. And then as I was running that, a guy came up to me with a really thick American accent. He was like, "Hey, I'm not going to try and do an American accent.
Please do."
I'm going to decline that.
Yeah, good call. Great call.
But yeah, he was like, "Hey, I'm Robert Knight," and gave me his card. And I was like, "Huh, cool. That sounds good."
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Nice to meet you. He left, and I waited 2 weeks, and then as I was walking down the road to work, actually back from work for my lunch break, he was walking the opposite way, and we kind of had this moment of looking at each other a little bit too much and kind of realizing that it was the other person, and we're like, hang on, how do we know each other? And then we connected and realized And he was like, oh, so I'm like the photographer or ex-photographer for like Stevie Ray Vaughan,
Wow.
John Mayer. He's done work with like Foo Fighters, Alien Weaponry.
Oh my gosh.
Elton John was a big, he was Elton's like good friend for a long time. And yeah, so
Wow.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then we proceeded to have like, I went down to he just launched a venue on K Road, and we just had this awesome few months of me going down and jamming on the piano, and like all that to say, the music scene in New Zealand, and especially in Auckland, because that's what I can comment on, is so like accessible, and it's so cool. Like it's one of the things that I've been so that has like underpinned a lot of our success with Yans is like everyone's just willing to support. And so you show up at a gig and there's like 20 people there that you know, and it's like great. You can just jam and hang out with all of these people that are in the sector, and they're all so accessible and they want to help. It's super cool.
That's awesome.
Even for me, I'm not musical. I was about to say a musician, and I tried to say musical.
Musical.
That's me. Not me at all. But I think through Avia, who has been going through pop stars and everything like that, and also I've realized that there's actually a lot of people that I've got kind of positioned around me in my circle that are very, very in that space and very passionate about it. I've actually found it's a really easy thing to support because it's like entertainment. It's like I am so willing to go and pay $20 to go to someone's gig on a Friday night, or I'm so willing to go and do that because it's like I'm being like blessed to like actually receive what your gift is because it's so good.
Yeah,
and I mean.
And enjoy it with others that just love it as well,
and
right?
Like everyone, I mean, even I know people in like our circle that don't like music at all, but like they'll go to the gig and they'll support because like all their friends are, and it's like it creates this really cool community. It's like I don't know, it invests in us getting off our screens and like actually more in front of each other and like talking and dancing and laughing and like it's so healthy and I think so good for the spirit as well.
It is so good. Yeah,
there's nothing like a good old boogie.
Yeah, I mean music and that's why it's been such a vital part of my life, and why it's something that I like. Our slogan for Yans is "The future is creative," and I think so cool. I just want to like embody that in all aspects of my life. Like I couldn't be in my role with Yans if I didn't go to gigs, and like I love it. I love going to gigs. I love like going and to like a poetry workshop and like all of those kind of artsy things, and going to art exhibitions and stuff. Like it's so important for the soul, and allows you to like just get so many different perspectives on things and interpret the world through like different eyes and different lenses, and it's great. I love it. So and I'm very like we live in a very creative city and in a very creative country, and the more that we can do to foster that, and that's why I'm so passionate about supporting the next generation, because if they don't have the ability to create, then we as the audience collectively aren't going to be able to have these experiences.
So true.
That's awesome.
I'm just kind of processing it because it's like I feel like challenged on so many levels with so many things, but also like encouraged, and like I don't know, it just even with what we do with Jeffrey, like it's I don't know, you realize the importance. And I've actually said this on the podcast before, but I heard a statistic a while ago, or not a statistic, but it came out in a study that they're predicting that like creatives are going to like not become extinct, but very, very rapidly die out in the next however many years, I can't remember. But the reasoning behind it is because the world is being programmed to become consumers. And so right from a really young age, you consume content, you consume through digital, you consume through the TV, you consume through TikTok and social media, and that it actually kind of undermines your ability to create, and it breeds insecurity because you look at something and you're going, I can't create something like that, and so I'm just not gonna do it at all. So right from a young age, you're in this place where you're like, don't want to create because it's not ever going to be as good as what that is, or I don't actually have a need to create because I've got entertainment. And I remember when I was young and I'd like run around in the school field and like pretend to be James Bond, or like, you know, I was in the military and like some, you know, like I
guess it's like the definition or standard of creativity is going to be so like shrunken and minimized, right?
Well,
so its potential.
What they were saying is just like even the way that the psychology around it and the way that part of your brain, like it works to create things, whether it be music, whether it be graphic design, whether it be spoken word or creative writing or whatever that is, like if you don't exercise that, and if you're not actually creative and you're not building Lego and you're not, you know, writing narrative or dreaming, and rather you're just consuming all the time, then that part of you just get so set in that way of just consuming, and so you don't actually cross over. And so I don't know, that like breaks my heart. But then to hear people like you step up and go, nah, we're fighting for this. Like,
well, I think that the thing is that potential is, and that creativity is always going to be there.
It will,
and but it's just about like, will they have the ability to create, you know, and that's I think that's the key thing. And whether that's like mental barriers, social barriers, financial barriers, like whatever that is, it's like let's break those down. And I think it's so important, like you said, you know, we're in such a consumption heavy age, and the more that we can encourage creativity, like just to you know, take some time out to create, because we're constantly doing things. Like even like people going to school now, you know, they're going to school and then they're like doing things for 8 hours, like 6 hours or something.
6 hours,
then they get home and they consume, and they're like doing homework and stuff, and like they're like doing all of this stuff, and they have no time to be young, to play, to breathe, and to play that, and to be curious and try things. I think there's so much of an expectation placed on our young people to only do things that you know you're going to succeed in. You know, it's like, where's the failure? Like, I failed so much, and I'm going to continue to fail. You know, but that is what makes that's what enriches our lives and makes us, like, leads us to a place where we've tried things, and therefore we know that that's not us, or whatever, you know, for whatever reason it's not who we are now. It's so important. So
that's awesome.
So epic.
That's great. Bro, we've got a bit of a wrap-up question for you that we ask everyone. What would your heart be for Jeffrey, for what we're doing, for where we are now? What would you like to see more of? Maybe like in the long run?
What you dream, what would you like to see out of it?
I mean, I think it's just about providing a platform for creatives to be heard, and whatever that looks like. So whether that's through, you know, products, or whether it's through things like this, podcasts, allowing like those stories to come through. I think that's so cool. Like, I've discovered so many people that I would never have discovered through things like podcasts and like just even like I've seen you guys sharing a whole bunch of content all at once on your Instagram story from a whole bunch of different creatives, and that's so cool. Like, I love that. And that's, you know, to a large extent what we're trying to do with Yans. It's like, how do we just get all of these people to like that next level, and support them as much as possible.
That's cool.
With their permission, obviously. But so I guess I would put that forward, just like consistently trying to find new ways for stories to be heard, and letting that come from the creatives themselves as well.
That's cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's like being the way I just kind of thought about it was like being a megaphone, right? And just holding it up.
Amplifying the voices.
Yeah. That's so cool. Bro, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a really cool chat, and I have been challenged and encouraged, and even just with Jeffrey, like, what we're focusing on and our heart behind it, just what you bring with Jans and your heart and your passion behind all of these things that I perhaps have been quite naive towards, or things that I haven't even considered when it comes to running a business or a movement and connecting with creatives. I've definitely, will be taking away a lot in my mental bank.
Yeah, but I think you're like, we're all on that right track because we're open, you know. And I think that's just the biggest thing. It's like, open your heart, open your mind, and don't rely on what you thought you knew. Rely on like the learnings and the experiences that you could have. From things. I think that's something that I've seen from you guys and from your brand and, you know, from your organization. It's like, you know, just be open.
Cool.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Far out. What a time to be alive.
What a time.
This fires me up, eh? This stuff just gets me so excited.
Yeah, I love these conversations. I love chatting to people. And I especially like chatting to other like creatives and people that are just doing cool things. It's super inspiring.
Awesome, man. How good?
So good.
Yeah.